Welcome to the Big Me Kickoff. It is Thursday, October 12th, doing it on a little bit of a different day than I normally would. And that is because Ohio State is on the road this week, traveling to Purdue. And when I normally would do this show, I will be in a van down by the river. Now, on our way to Northwest Indianapolis, where we will be staying to be in position for a noon kick on Fox. First, let's get a little bit of housekeeping out of the way here on the show. You are watching us here on the Big Me Kickoff, part of Buckeye Huddle. If you're not a member of Buckeye Huddle, get on board right now. We have all the best recruiting news, team coverage, and the best community in all of Buckeye Nation, in my opinion, at least, over at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And one other thing, I want to welcome WagerWire on board as a partner of Buckeye Huddle. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a better by allowing you to sync all of your sports books and track all of your bets in one place. You can see your current action, your betting history, and stats. You can also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. They're the best hang on all of gambling Twitter or X, depending on what you want to call it. You can follow them at WagerWire on X, formerly known as Twitter. Let's get that up there right now. Head to the App Store or the Google Play Store and search WagerWire to download the app. We'll talk about them here again a little bit in a minute. Very excited about WagerWire being part of our family now. They are some good people. Jordan, yes, we will talk about the radio show. I'm going to mark your post right there so I can come back to it. How's it going there, Mike Smith? Wingman Ted is on board as well, along with Mark Fetters and Ryan Dawes. Okay, I think we got caught up with everybody. I put this show in to run at 1:30 for some reason, and I was thinking about why I would have done that. That's not my usual time. Normally, we would go on Thursday from the radio show to what they call the lightning round, which is like a 15-minute Zoom with Ryan Day, where we get to ask some final questions for the week. With it being the beginning of fall break, they changed the schedule up a little bit, and they are practicing this afternoon. And anybody who listened to the radio show certainly would have heard that as well. In doing so, there was no time to do a lightning round. So I figured that I probably would have been working until about 1:15, 1:20 on items, and 1:30 made sense. No lightning round, no need to do that. Let's do the show at 1. Let's get it over with and get on with our day. And, I think people are used to seeing this show on at 1:00 as well. So that's why we did it that way. But Ryan Day was on his radio show to go through some points with Paul Keels and with Jim Lachey over at the Woody. And don't know if we necessarily learned a lot from the radio show. I don't think that is the purpose of those interviews. It's not to play gotcha. It's not to be hugely investigative journalism or anything along those lines. We certainly did learn that we got it reiterated that Trevion Henderson is doing a lot better than he was last week. And honestly, I think that last week Trevion Henderson was in the break glass in case of emergency role. He was not suited up. But being at home, you could have probably just run in and put in some pads, but I think it was, the right call. Now, I think he goes against Purdue. Emeka Buka, we still don't have an answer. Honestly, my opinion is why play him in this game? I don't think that you're going to necessarily need him, and you are going to need him against Penn State. You just don't want to have a JSN situation to where you bring somebody back too quickly due to their own urging of wanting to come back, wanting to be out there competing with their brothers, and then lose him long term. So all apologies to Purdue and 3-5, and we'll get into that in a minute. I think that you dress Emeka, you travel Emeka, you dress him, you have him there. Maybe you have him in an emergency role if the ghosts of 3-5 since 2000 at Purdue come home to roost, but I don't think you play him. Super chat from Ryan Dawes. How boring is the drive to West Lafayette? It's boring. It's boring, especially once you leave Indianapolis. And It's not a super long drive from Indy, the northern outskirts of Indy to West Lafayette, but there's just not a darn thing out there really. And that's why I'm glad on the way up there we are staying in Northwest Indianapolis to break it up and to be able to wake up and still be at the stadium by 8:39, whatever time we decide to get there at. There's always a lot of work to do prior to covering a game. And also always have a lot of friends who travel to games and want me to swing by their tailgates, and that's I largely fail at that one because there's just too much work to do, and even if I'm there, I'm not there because my mind is already in work mode. If you are an architect, you're probably thinking, "Oh, I got to go and I got this project or I got that project." If you're a pilot, you got to think about weather conditions and everything else. I've got my own things to think about. Uh, Doing what I do, probably not as noble or majestic as being an architect or a pilot, but those were the first two jobs that came to mind. Thank you for the super chat, Ryan. Hey, Brian from Athens, Ohio. Go drink a Jackie O's for me. I know there's also that other brewery down there that is a little bit more rural that has like a really great view. I sat out there like on some picnic tables once. I can't think of the name of it, but it was really good, really eclectic beers. Like I like those. So I'm not going to look it up at this point. Brian may jump into the chat again with what that brewery is down in Athens. But yeah, and we now have the Jackie O's tap room here in Columbus. They just cut loose the food truck that was there, which was, I think it was like Market Street Bagel or in Delhi or something, and fantastic bagel sandwiches. I mean, I really like a good bagel sandwich, but I guess Jackie O's is bringing food service in house now. So I was disappointed to see that. Wish I would have had more of an opportunity to sample the wares of that food truck because it was good. And yes, you can say, dude, it's lunch meat and cheese on a bagel. But a good bagel sandwich is fantastic, and a bad bagel sandwich is forgettable. And I'm sitting here talking about this one, so it must have been pretty good. Mark Fetter's asking, y'all got Peacock ready to go? I mean, you better if you want to watch it. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And you can I want to jump here really quick. Yes, Wingman Ted, I do think it was Little Fish. I do think it was Little Fish. My wife and I were on our way back from North Carolina, and we stopped by there and each had one because we still had to drive back to Columbus. And I really enjoyed it. I don't get down to Athens that much. I drive through Athens a fair amount, but it's just one of those types of situations. Mark, I'm going to get to your comment and talk more about Peacock, I promise. But another super chat from Ryan Dawes. Okay, let's get real. Who do you see having an impact on both sides of the ball against Purdue? Is this answered in tail of the tape? If so, go sign up to Buckeye Huddle. Thank you. I do talk about it somewhat, and I do agree wholeheartedly, Ryan Dawes, that everybody should sign up for Buckeye Huddle. First of all, it's awesome. Second of all, it helps me keep a roof over my head. Third of all, it's awesome. Fourth of all, me having a roof over my head is awesome. But all joking aside, we've got just such a great team with Mark Givler and with Tony Gerdeman and Tom Moore and Ross Fulton and Devin Ratcliffe and Mikey Pettit. I mean, we've got all your bases covered there. And I do talk about the Purdue game at length in the tail of the tape. And anybody who's not had a chance to read it, I urge you to read it. But it is a member exclusive, one of the member exclusives that we have there. So if you're not a subscriber, you can't read it. So I don't want to bring everything over. I got to have a hook here. I've got to sell subscriptions. I got a quota, But yeah, I think that Purdue is an extremely banged up team. And that's nothing exclusive to my piece. Head coach Ryan Walters came out and discussed, some of the injuries. A lot more forthcoming than Ryan Day. Ryan Walters is in his first year as a head coach. I think he'll get into about year 3 and realize I'm not going to tell anybody anything I don't have to, which is kind of where you see coaches going these days. So they're down one of their corners. They're down either their 1 or their 1A running back with Tyrone Tracy. They still have Devin Mockabee. And then I think they're also down a lineman. I'm not remembering off the top of my head. You got to remember the way that I write tail of the tape is I write it generally on Monday, if not Tuesday, and then spend the week sweetening it and tightening up some facts that need to be tightened up. So the names are already out of my mind largely, but they're banged up. So who is going to have a big game for Ohio State? I think we're going to start on the defensive side, and I think Ohio State's going to do a really good job of taking the run away. So am I saying that maybe one of the linebackers steps up after the linebackers have given back a lot the last couple of weeks? I don't know. I know that Hudson Card gets sacked in mass. That's just kind of one of those situations. Sacked 6 times against Iowa. I think he has 8 other sacks on the season. To get to like 14 or something along those lines. I think the defensive backs are going to do well for Ohio State just because of the sheer fact that Hudson Card has 6 touchdowns against 5 picks, a couple of bad picks against Iowa. I'm not saying Ohio State and Iowa's defenses are exactly the same, but Ohio State's defense at least is now kind of in the same conversation of being in the higher rent neighborhood, where the last couple of years it was kind of closer to Skid Row. So on the offensive side of the ball, I'm really not expecting to see a Mecca Ibuka go. So could somebody like Xavier Johnson see a little bit more run? Could this push more things to Caden or to I'm sorry to Cade Stover? I don't know. I mean, I'm not necessarily ready to say that I expect Ohio State's running game to kind of figure it out. I do think Trevion Henderson could break out and have a couple of big runs. He could pick up 75 yards on three runs, but my fear is that his 75 yards right there, totaled with the rest of Ohio State's rushing yards, will still be like about 130. So I think that there's the opportunity for some wide open play for Ohio State, but I just wrote my prediction and it will run on Buckeye Huddle tomorrow, so I'm not going to scoop myself. I like Ohio State's chances of really keeping Purdue limited, but I'm just still a little torn on how prolific I think the Ohio State offense is. Now, if Kyle McCord gets out to a quick start, if he gets out to a quick start in the first quarter and we don't have to wait till midway through the second for things to get going, I think things could go because I think Purdue's offense is not going to be able to prolong drives. So I think Ohio State gets 12 offensive drives in this game. But with that being said, their execution rate has not been great, so we'll see. But thank you for that super chat. Jumping in here for another super chat with Jordan Kapler. Consider this partial rent and beer money. Safe travels to Train Town. Thank you, Jordan. I appreciate that. Certainly looking forward to a little beer money. We will probably not have room beers because we will go out on Friday night and watch a couple of the games there. There's a place called Gatsby's that sounds like is within stumbling distance of the hotel. It's going to be an early wake up call. I don't think anybody's going to go and get blotto. Well, at least I'm not going to. But when you want to be up in West Lafayette between 8:30 and 9, that's just kind of an estimation of when I think we might want to be up there. It's going to be 6 a.m. showers, so I can't get myself too festive. But safe travels for sure to Train Town as it is, West Lafayette. Oh, there's the sign for West Lafayette. We must be close. No, you still have a ways to go to get to West Lafayette off the interstate. And no, I'm not talking like 25 miles, but it you get there and you're like, oh, this is going to be great. And then you're driving and you're driving and you cross the river and then you're driving and you're driving. And then you finally get into West Lafayette and you're like, this is it. And it's one of these campuses that no matter how many times I've been there, I always get turned around. I don't know where I'm going. Yeah, it doesn't help that Ohio State hasn't played there since 2018. So it's been 5 years. And I'm certainly having senior moments now. I don't remember things quite as well as I used to. But I always get turned around there. So I don't know. But we'll get there. We'll get out. So we'll figure all that out. But back to Mark's point about having Peacock. If you're going to a bar, make sure the bar has access to Peacock. And I know that sounds simple enough, but I had talked to a couple of friends who were like, I'm not paying for Peacock. I'm like, you will be one day. Well, I'm not doing it now. I'm going to a bar. Like, make sure the bar has it. They're like, I'm like, it's not necessarily something that is just put on the bar system for the hell of it. They have to pay through the nose. There's a lot. I mean, and if you have a bar that has like 26 TVs, I don't know if you can sit there and say, I only want to turn it on 2 TVs. I only want to pay for 2 licenses for this. I don't know how that works. If they just charge you of how many TVs you have, and it's like, well, you're just kind of SOL. I don't think you can a la carte it like that. I don't think at home you can have one TV that has like the full package with every channel and then like two TVs that don't. So I'm just saying, make sure that where you're going is wired for Peacock and that they have it, or you may be running around looking for it. And my real advice is just bite the bullet. Use, like, I think the promo code is today. I think you get like half off. I found a promo where I'm getting 3 months for $6. And with basketball being on there as well, including like the Texas A&M game, and that's a home game, and I'll be at the game, but I'm still telling people that they're going to be constantly in the cycle of signing up and canceling and signing up and canceling, and I get it. Nobody wants to spend the money on if they're not going to watch it. I get it. The number of streaming channels that we get here at our house is ridiculous, but the thing is that the ones that I don't really care about, my wife likes, so I'm not canceling those. The ones that she doesn't care about, I like, so we're not canceling those, and then there are the ones that we both like. But let's see, we have Netflix, we have Amazon Prime, we have Hulu, we have Disney Plus, because I have to watch my Star Wars nerd stuff. We have Peacock, we have Paramount Plus. I think that's it. I think. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but it feels like a lot. And when you figure these things are anywhere from $5 to like $18 a month, it's like another cable bill. So I need to make some decisions in terms of how I'm going to handle cable. And I know everybody's like, dude, just cut the cord, YouTube TV or whatever. I know, but I see the carriage disputes that happen. And I know that generally DirecTV doesn't have them as often. I mean, certainly they had one with Nexstar that went about 2 months, which meant I didn't get Channel 4 here in Columbus, which is really part of the reason I signed up for Peacock when I did, because there were a couple shows that were coming to like the series finales. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not wasting 8 years of my life of watching this show not to know how it ends. But I digress. This has been more than enough of a commercial for Peacock. So, NBC, if you're watching and you want to send me a couple bucks, you know where to do it. Let me see here. Wingman Ted. I've never been there because Purdue, but I've always wondered if people drink Boilermakers in Traintown. I did once. I went to that Harry's Chocolate Shop, which is like the famous campus bar, and I ordered one. But this was around the time of everybody drinking flaming Dr. Peppers, and a lot of bars would not light them because you have a bar covered with alcohol, and then you bring an open flame into the mix, and then tragedy ensues. But back in my days at Ohio State, for those of you in your 40s and 50s, I used to go to jousters before every game. And that was part of our tradition, was a bucket or two of beer there and at least one round of flaming Dr. Peppers when they would still light them on fire. So, we're talking a long time ago. We were stupider back in those days, but we survived. So I guess that makes us tough or lucky. Let me just keep going through. I am just getting enough light into my glasses that I'm having a hard time reading these in the queue. So I'm just punching them up and hoping for the best. It's not hard to find a stream for anything. Just look for Music for Me 007. And that's true. That's true. And you certainly can do stuff to where you airplay it to your TV and and your speakers and everything else. I remember the days of trying to get the wrestling pay-per-views through streams, and it never was right. It was laggy and crappy and everything else. And I haven't tried. I mean, remember, I'm at the game, so I'm not necessarily that concerned about it. I don't really watch UFC. I'm UFC curious, but I don't really watch it because I don't want to get into a system of where everything of consequence is on a pay-per-view and then I'm playing that game. But for one shot, I mean, Ohio State's really going to only play the one football game on Peacock this year, in my opinion. It could be a decent workaround, or you could just get it and just be done with it. And that's kind of where I think a lot of us have gone. Wingman Ted. Usually bars have to pay for things like that based on the number of seats they have, not the number of TVs. So a small pub can afford it easier than like a BW3s. The only reason I said per TV was I saw somebody post something, I think on the Book of Faces, and they were factoring in things based on their number of TVs. I have a buddy that owns a small chain of wing and beer places, and I should probably ask him how it works. He would tell me. And I don't know what he's ended up doing, but when everything started to move there and we had the conversation that things could go to Apple, things could go to Peacock, Paramount Plus, whatever, we had some conversations about it. And he said, well, the way that they're going to do it is that it'll be something that's like on the business direct TV setup to where you pay for it. And then, the right people will get compensated and everything else. And I know over there they get Amazon at his place because I was there on a Thursday night and they had the Bears game on. So I know that's all there. So let me jump right now. I'm going to mark where I was with Wingman Ted and go to Jordan Kapler Super Chat. In 2017, I went to my sister's wedding and we lost to Iowa. In 2018, I went to Montana to visit the in-laws and we lost to Purdue. This weekend, my rear end will be firmly planted at home. OSU 42, Boilers 10. And that's the thing. Superstitions work. Nothing is more selfish and in terms of I am so important that what I wear or what I eat or that if I don't touch this screw on this light panel 3 times, they're going to lose. I'm as superstitious as the next guy. Young Kevin, when he was growing up, I had wallpaper in my bedroom with all of the Major League Baseball logos. And, we're talking old enough that it was still like Montreal Expos. We didn't have any of these expansion teams, any of that stuff. And I listened to every Dodgers game on the radio. And there would be times that the Dodgers would need a clutch hit or whatever. And I would like run around the room and touch all of the Dodger logos. So the OCD starts early. The OCD starts very early with all of that stuff. I always joke that if I wear a shirt and Ohio State loses, I'm like, well, that shirt's out of luck. Doesn't mean I don't necessarily go back and wear it, but I do joke about that even to that point. So superstitions are real if you believe they're real. And every little bit helps. Every little bit helps. Let me go here to Odysseus. Purdue's secret is having a broom closet for the visitors' locker room. That's right. And Purdue is putting a lot of money into their venue. Not so much into the visitor stuff. I mean, at least at Ohio Stadium, the visitors' locker room is fine. The visitors' post-game room is fine. They don't necessarily do a job of where it was an afterthought. And it's like, well, all right, we got to take this mop bucket out of here, and that's where we're going to have visiting media do their press conference. At Maryland, players still have to tape up on the field. The visitors' locker room at Maryland is so small and crummy, and I've not really been in there, but I've watched the players tape up on the field before. It is such a crummy facility in there, and I've heard that remedy is coming at some point, but there are a lot of bad facilities. Look, do the Hayden Fry, paint the visitor locker room pink. I don't care. Put My Little Pony all over it, whatever it is you want to do, but there are rules to war. There is a Geneva Convention. You have to provide somewhat of a facility for the visiting team. I mean, if not, you should just sit there and just, sick the dogs on them as they get off the bus. I mean, so I think it's really ridiculous that Power 5 facilities are not up to snuff, and there needs to be some sort of minimum standard. And of course, everybody's going to be like, well, how are we going to pay for it? Well, other teams have figured it out along the way, but things are more expensive now. Well, sucks to suck. I don't know what to tell you, But yeah, I agree, Odysseus. That locker room's not good. Brian Hartline made a comment yesterday about remembering the locker room. It's a dump. Wayne Taylor won't be watching this game as it isn't available on broadcast TV. I assume you'll be listening on radio then. Last time I listened to an Ohio State game on radio was 1999. And that was because that's when I moved from when I moved from Columbus to Dallas. And the cable operator, the cable man, I think I had DirecTV at the apartment that I moved into, they'd not come to do the install or whatever, so I didn't have access to it. In some way, somehow I managed to find a way to get it on radio. I don't know how. I just remember sitting in my apartment, my new apartment. My mom was there helping me unpack boxes, and I was listening to it on the radio. Couldn't tell you who they played. I don't remember any of that, but I think that was the last time I listened to a game on the radio. I think for the last time that an Ohio State game was not on television would have been a couple years earlier, Minnesota. Ohio State, Minnesota, at Minnesota. And Channel 10, the CBS affiliate in Columbus, bought the rights to rebroadcast it later, but there was no live TV on it. And I worked at the ABC affiliate at the time, and it was a maddening affair. I'll say that. And we can all complain as much as we want to, and with plenty of rightness on your side about the proliferation of everything being a la carte and being on streaming channels and everything else. And Ohio State's never going to be a team that's going to be out there a ton. But with that being said, I think it's still going to be part of the experience. I mean, what does BTN Plus become? And BTN Plus is much more of a situation for basketball. And then once you get down into some of the non-rev sports, I mean, you're already having to pay for that. I just don't think that there's going to be a long-term solution to be able to watch your team play on the regular without something there. I mean, let's not forget, you are paying for ESPN. You are paying for FS1. You're paying for those channels. It's just part of your cable bill. Yes, you could go and watch ABC, NBC, and CBS over the air through a digital antenna, a one-time cost, $30, $40, depending on how far away you live from the towers, will determine what kind of power you need out of your digital antenna. And you can watch it in stunning HD. But that's going to do you fine for the games on Fox and NBC and CBS. And Ohio State will play more games on there than not. But Ohio State won't play all of its games on there. So they're going to be games that you're going to have to find solutions for. And I think that it is easier to justify FS1 and things like that because, well, it's just it's a hidden cost. It's part of my cable bill. You don't think about those channels. You don't think about any of that stuff because it's in there. It is all paid in one bill. It's not a separate bill. It's not a separate device or app and having to go in through your smart TV or an Apple TV or a Roku stick or whatever, or Fire Stick or Roku box or whatever. I'm never going to fault anybody who's like, put my foot down. I'm not getting this. I'm not going to do it. I will forego watching the game. It's well within your right. Nobody's coming over to hold a gun to your head. It's like, you're going to watch this game. I swear to God, you're going to watch this game if it kills you. That's not part of it. But there's going to be a part where I think it's going to be a little bit more normal. And I'll get back to questions here in a minute. I'm getting off onto a downhill rant here. I remember covering Ohio State here when BTN started, and people were flipping the blank out. What the hell's a BTN? How do I get BTN? Time Warner doesn't have BTN. What am I going to do? And there was a huge stink about it. BTN is pretty normal now. People may say, I don't like the production values on BTN, blah, 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 blah. And that's fine. But I really don't hear anybody's like, well, I don't get BTN. BTN has got pretty much full clearance within the footprint. and there are ways to get to it if not. I think that streaming will eventually get to that point, but right now it's not normal for everybody, especially anybody over the age of 45, I'll say. And I wanted to find a number younger than me. I don't necessarily identify as an old person yet. My driver's license may say that I'm becoming an old person. The mail I get from AARP may say that I'm becoming an old person. I don't feel, well, I do feel like an old person. My back is killing me. My knees hurt. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I probably could drop 50 pounds and fix some of that myself. But 51, I'm old. But, back to the point. Hey, how's it going, Treasure? Have not had a chance to punch up your comment, but I did see it right there saying hi. Hey, Mika, as well. I got a message for you, Mika, that I'll get to in a minute. But streaming is not necessarily what, we didn't cut our teeth on streaming. Streaming is still relatively new. I think, you could put like an iPad in a baby's hands and they're going to be able to operate the iPad better than you in a month. I think that, for like a teenager or 20-year-old, streaming has kind of been there for a significant amount of their, higher adolescent to young adult life. And it's not as much of an issue. I don't like streaming because if I'm streaming, I have to like back out of it to go and watch something on broadcast. So how would I watch as a fan? How would I watch this Ohio State game and then watch two other games like on Fox and ABC? Oh, simple. Two TVs. Well, my wife has told me that there are a few sure ways that I'm going to end up buried under the house, and putting a second TV in the living room is one of them. So that is not an option for me. It doesn't matter for me this week. I will be at the game, but that is my biggest issue there. I think you need to find a way to, and it's going to happen on the television manufacturing side of where you do something along the lines of having a grid view that can work with like multiple inputs. And then you can assign, like if you have like a 4-box grid, like the bottom left is, you can assign it. You can assign the bottom left to your Peacock app, and you can assign the bottom right to whatever app, to your Amazon app. And then I don't know. I mean, you might have to have a way of where you would sit there and like if you had like a game on ESPN, you have it through like Watch ESPN, because I don't know how then you split like a DirecTV box or a Spectrum box or an Xfinity box. I don't know how you do that, but there has to be a way to do something like that. I patent this. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to be on Shark Tank in 3 years. I'm going to have a deal with Lori Grenier and Mark Cuban. Just watch. Let me get back up here to the comments as we're doing stuff. Oh, Antoine, I don't have the fight in me today to fight. And I know that, and anybody who's like, well, why do you have this guy in here? I like Antoine. He's generally pretty good natured. I've been on a show that wasn't my show. He was a little bit more combative, but he's always been really good to me. So he's a friend of the show, even if he's a lost soul who roots for that team up north. The way Ohio State playing, y'all better wear a rabbit's foot around your neck. I don't think Ohio State needs a rabbit's foot against Purdue. Next week is going to be interesting, and we're going to see what that one looks like. Ohio State is not winning games because of luck. Ohio State is winning games in spite of itself, is what's happening right there. Ohio State should have pretty much all of its games, maybe short of Western Kentucky, probably should have been a wider margin, but it is what it is. You know what Ohio State has in common with Michigan? They're both undefeated. You know what Ohio State has in common with Michigan? They're both in the top 5 nationally. You know what Ohio State has in common with Michigan? They're both in the top 3 nationally in scoring defense. There are a lot of similarities between these teams. Has Michigan had a less eventful set of games? Yes. Has Michigan played anybody? No. Has Ohio State played anybody? Well, more so. Maryland's going to be the 4th best team in the Big Ten. Book it. Notre Dame, regardless of it tripping up against Louisville, is still significantly better than anybody that Michigan has played. just a lot of talking going on before we get into November when Michigan's schedule finally firms up. So we'll see. I mean, Ohio State could drop a game, could drop 2 games before the Michigan game. It's, it could happen. I don't think much of Wisconsin. I think pretty highly of Penn State. I don't think a whole lot of Wisconsin. For everything and bringing in Tanner Mordecai is like, we're going to bring our offense into the current decade. Still a lot of running there. I have not started any evaluation on Penn State yet, so I don't want to get to that point. Probably do a Monday show if I'm not traveling. Probably do a first glance Monday show on Penn State. Rabbit feet are optional though. Let me get here. Oh, Ryan Dawes, I want to get this one. Thank you for your sacrifice, Jordan. Yes, for putting rear end in seat and not going off onto wild locales. I'm just so important. I know I have to make the sacrifice for the team. I'm expecting Block O next year. Well, that would be something. Wingman Ted, a little off topic, but as Northwestern scandals and potential money set aside payouts affected their new stadium plans, have I heard anything? I read something this morning that some of the plans were approved, but there's still neighborhood pushback on it being a semi-occasional regular concert venue. Now, I don't follow Northwestern that closely. I just happened to see it. One of my really good friends runs a Northwestern website, so I follow his Twitter account, and by following his Twitter account, I see things sometimes that I normally wouldn't dig up. Didn't read the story. I didn't really go into it. I read the headline. I'm like, oh, good for them. And then I was on my way to something else. Ryan Dawes asking if that was when Wilhelm choked a Minnesota player. The only choking I really remember is Wisconsin, and that was Rob Reynolds who did that. Hey, Mika, how's it going? You have your account set up on Buckeye Huddle. Thanks to Ryan. And thank you again, Ryan, for setting up Mika. Please jump in there and start posting. We want to see you there. Not right this second. We love you here in our chat during our show. But even when we're not on the air, the message board is there all day, all night, and we're looking forward to you getting involved there. If you're having any issues, you've got my email. Just shoot me a note, and I'll try and walk you through anything that I can. Let me keep scrolling here. Ohio bookseller. I heard a good way to protect yourself. Go buy a prepaid card from any store and never reload it. You can only be charged what you've loaded on the card, even if you forget to cancel. I certainly have done that in the past. Not to the point of going out and getting a preloaded card or anything like that, but I've received gift visas for the holidays before. And while it's nice and satisfying to throw one of those down at for a dinner or something at some point, be like, boom, I don't have to pay for that. That's a good way to use those cards as well. Some places are not really copacetic with them because valued guest is not really a name, and they want to have a little bit more information on there. But I think I've used gift cards on Amazon. I think I've done things like that in the past. So that's a very good idea there, Ohio bookseller. Let me get caught up here a little bit more. Music for me, 007. I'm the same age as you, Kevin, and I know how to do all this stuff as far as streaming. And this was not an indictment of anybody. I'm just saying that I think that there is a divide over people that think that streaming is normal and people who think that streaming is a pain in the butt. I think that it's kind of the same way of there is an age, and it's a little older than 45. There is an age of where people want to read a physical newspaper versus the people who want to read the news online. And then there's a third column of people who just don't want to read the news. And I think the column 3 is by far larger than 1 and 2 combined. But no, it's not necessarily that. And I understand with some people, it's just a matter of principle. And I understand with some people, it's I just can't spend the money. And, I get all of the arguments. I feel blessed that I'm in a position to where I can have all these streaming apps. I'd like to get rid of 1 or 2. Just haven't figured out how to do it. I get Prime with Amazon, so that's the one I probably watch the least. But since it's all rolled in with Amazon Prime, which I do like for the shipping and everything else, I can't really get rid of that one. We both love Netflix. Not getting rid of that. As I said, I have Disney Plus because of all the Star Wars stuff, but my wife really likes Hulu because there's a lot of old 80s shows and 90s shows that are on there in full seasons. So she can binge watch those, when she has time. And then, I think Paramount Plus might be one that I could get rid of, but they just announced a new South Park streaming episode is coming on at the end of the month. I got to hold on to it until that. For those who know me, I've got a very South Park-esque sense of humor and slant on the world. So I don't necessarily want to get rid of that one. And then, as we've talked about Peacock and the game being on Peacock, and honestly, probably after I'm done with the show, I'm going to sit down, and Purdue's been on Peacock a decent amount. I'm probably going to sit down and watch some more Purdue just to get even more familiar with the team. Antoine Johnson, sounds like you got to build yourself a man cave, Kevin. I would love to. Our basement is unfinished. If Basement Authority would love to just do a sample house where they just go nuts with the basement, I'll open up our basement once a week for tours to show prospective clients what you can do. I mean, I'm not even asking that I get all of the equipment put in there. I'm just asking that I get the basement finished. That's not a cheap undertaking, and right now it's not in the cards. Signing up to Buckeye Huddle, would that get me there? Probably not, but it sure would make me feel better. So if you're not a member to Buckeye Huddle, please sign up. Check us out there. You're not going to regret it. Get on board for a month for the price of less than 50 cents a day. I mean, you could get over the course of a month, that's a crummy delivery pizza. And those delivery pizzas are getting crummier and crummier. You could be part of the best Ohio State community out there. Honestly, I'm surprised Antoine hasn't signed up. I think he would just probably go and sign up just to see if he could torment me. So, not to give you any ideas, Antoine, but we do have a couple of Michigan types on the board. And again, as long as everybody plays well, nobody wants a message board that's an echo chamber. Nobody wants a message board where people are afraid to dissent with the popular opinion. Nobody wants a message board where some of the posters are just a-holes about things. And that's, and unfortunately, that's just message board culture, that you're going to have that somewhat. But it's very easy to get into a community and not be a fan of the main topic. To go into a Philadelphia Eagles community and be a Cowboys fan. Now, they may be less tolerant than we are of differing opinions. I might get run in 5 seconds there. But I think that a good conversation can have multiple viewpoints as long as people are respectful of one another. Now, have I run Michigan fans before in my 4,000 years running in message board communities? Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't need to sit there and have scores of past games repeated like on every post, and I'm not giving anybody any ideas, and there are timeouts coming. I'm just going to say that if that happens. King Bronco, when he was frequenting this community, would certainly make a lot of annoying posts. And I would have to put him in timeout every now and then. But gotten off on a tangent. Check out Buckeye Huddle. Check out WagerWire as well. Download the app, either through the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. Use code Buckeye Huddle. Use code Buckeye Huddle when you sign up. That gives us credit. If you're going to sign up for a new sports book, if gambling is in your state, sign up through the app. You will still get your bonuses. And hey, we even get a little bit of notice for that too. So check all of that out. I have a video here on our YouTube channel where I sat down with Travis Geiger, one of the co-founders of WagerWire, to talk about what WagerWire is and why everybody needs to get on board. So WagerWire, follow them on Twitter at WagerWire. Let me go here to Jordan Kapler. When I move in, I can hang my TV in the living room. So technically it's still only one of your TVs and one of mine. That's an idea. I like that idea. And then as long as one of them's on streaming and one of them's on direct TV, we've got a lot of answers right there. We've got music for me, 007, 2 laptops and 2 TVs. That's how I do have 2 laptops. I have one that's kind of a backup that's getting a little long in the tooth. But whenever you have to take your Apple computer, your MacBook in for service, a lot of times it could be gone for a week, and I want to have something that I can at least access the website, access a couple of things that I would need in that instance. And I do have 2 desktops as well. But I don't know. My eyesight is getting so horrible right now. Going between a big screen TV and a 15-inch MacBook and an iPad, that's just a lot of work for me. That's just a lot of work for me. And I don't know. I'll figure it out. There's going to probably be, Ohio State's open week is done already. So there's not really a day here this season of where I'm going to be doing a lot of that, but maybe I'll figure something out the next time that they're back to back, that their NFL games up against each other that I really want to watch. Treasure the tour. The Buckeyes will be good. We will figure it out sooner than later. I mean, that's certainly the hope. That is certainly, that's certainly the hope there that they, get off to a quicker start, are able to do some of these things. And we talked to Kyle McCord about it, and he recognizes that he's not getting off to good starts. I mean, and people have said in our chats, "Oh, you need to hypnotize him. Let him think that the first quarter is the third quarter." Well, all joking aside, he's just got to get off to a better start. And Ohio State got off to a really bad start against Maryland with its 3 and out, and then muffed, failed, fake punt, whatever the hell we want to call that thing, and then Maryland made a great throw, and suddenly Ohio State was down 7-0. And then Ohio State still couldn't do anything on offense. And Maryland was a drop pass away from being up 14-0. It ended up being 10-0. And then Ohio State woke up and only gave up 7 more points along the way and put up 37 of its own. So how do you get off to a better start? I think that better start is going to be the cure to a lot of issues. It's not necessarily going to fix the pass blocking or the run blocking or the run game or some of these other things, but success begets success. And I think that they need to have a little bit more success. And it's funny that we're talking about a 5-0 team. It's like, what they need is more success. Well, they've been successful in 5 games. They've won 5 games. What are there? 15, 14 undefeated teams left in the nation? Something like that. And we know that number is going to get much smaller. The 3 teams in the Big Ten are going to cannibalize each other. You're only going to have 1 or 0 coming out of the Big Ten. You're only going to have 1 or 0 coming out of the Pac-12. You're only going to have 1 or 0 coming out of the SEC. So numbers will work themselves out there, but Ohio State just hasn't had the success offensively that we're used to seeing. We're not talking about the success it's had defensively. And I said at the beginning of the season, if Ohio State is 20% better defensively and 20% worse offensively, how many games does Ohio State win? I think it's 12. Well, Ohio State is 50% better, 60% better, 70% better defensively. Unfortunately, it may be 50% worse offensively. I don't know if the same ratios work there that amounts to a 12-win season in the regular season. I don't know. We have seen Ohio State's defense go against some legitimate offenses. Maryland is a legitimate offense. Maryland is not a great running team. Maryland had a little bit of success there, but Ohio State largely kept Taulia in check. I think the jury is still out on where Notre Dame's offense is. Did Ohio State break Notre Dame? That's what we all like to say when a team doesn't look the same after it plays Ohio State. I don't know if I'm willing to go that far, but Notre Dame's offense wasn't all that great against Duke, and it certainly wasn't all that great against Louisville. But that was a tough challenge, and Ohio State's defense performed well there. Ohio State's defense performed well against Western Kentucky. People are going to be like, brah, they're a group of 5 team. Who cares? Brah, they are one of the best offenses, at least in terms of pass offense, in the nation. So for Ohio State to hold Austin Reed and Malachi Corley in check the way that it did, it's not nothing. It's something. So the challenges will be more real against Penn State. The challenges will be more real against Michigan. I don't have to bet on either of those games today. I don't have to make a prediction on either of those games today. There's still things that I'm very concerned as somebody who watches Ohio State as much as anybody out there that I'm concerned about. I don't think are up to snuff. There's some things though that I think that they've done a major job of turning things around. Let me see what Michigan looks like after it has to play Penn State and Maryland. I think both of those are on the road, if I remember right. I know at least Penn State is, and I think Maryland is too. And Maryland's a much different team at home than it is on the road. As for Penn State maybe it's non-conference schedule. I mean, at least played a couple of name brand teams. You can't gather much playing Iowa and its anemic offense. But I'm going to be curious to see if Katron Allen and if Nick Singleton are going to be able to run with success against Ohio State. I'm going to be curious to see what a lot of things look like in that one. I'm going to be curious to see if Ohio State can pass against that secondary, because I think Penn State's secondary is where you attack them. I think that Penn State's linebackers are probably the best at least in the conference, starting with Abdul Carter. But I think that secondary, with the turnover that it's had, I think that that's where you get them. Now, of course, you have to be able to protect your quarterback long enough for routes to develop. Of course, your quarterback has to make the right read. You can't come out of the huddle already going, I'm going to 1-8. I'm going to 8. I'm going to 2. Got to go through your reads. And I'm not saying Kyle McCord is just strictly a one-read quarterback, but I'm saying as a younger quarterback, I don't think he's always executing the right read. And that's fair. And the difference between me saying that and Joe Blow down the street saying, he sucks, is huge. He sucks is just, is not great. I don't think he's making the right read. There is a path to how you be better. Do better with your reads. You suck means it's just done. You just suck. So I don't know. Antoine Johnson. Oh, did I click it? No, I didn't. There it is. Kevin, be real. You uneasy. I do not get a ring if Ohio State wins a title. I do not get bonuses from Ohio State if they win a game or lose a game. My life is easier if Ohio State wins. Why? Fans are happier. Fans are more likely to sign up for the website. Fans are more likely to come on here. Fans are more likely to kick out super chats, which apparently I've missed several down here. So I'm going to mark where I'm at. And I'm going to hit all of those super chats. Producing for myself sometimes can be a challenge, but uneasy? No. I'll say that I don't know. I don't know what either of those games are going to look like. I have no idea. But Penn State's a week away, and Michigan is several weeks away. I don't have to know right now. Antoine, you don't know. I don't know. Ryan Day doesn't know. Jim Harbaugh doesn't know. A lot of stuff can happen between now and then. A couple weeks prior to Ohio State, Michigan, Blake Corum was just fine for Michigan, and Trevion Henderson was just fine for Ohio State. Both of them got hurt. Certainly changed the complexion of some things. I'm not saying that if you put Blake Corum on Michigan and you put Trevion Henderson back on Ohio State, that the outcome is different. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying you don't know. And you in general, not you as in Antoine or you as in Kevin Noon or whoever. But let me hit my super chats because those go to the top of the line. Here's an Antoine one here. I love me some Michigan. Say it, Kevin. That's all you're going to get is me repeating what you're saying there. Otherwise, not really. Went up to go see a comedy show at one of the casinos in Detroit several years ago. Rock hit my windshield. That made me really unhappy. Can't seem to win at Greektown or at the what is it, the M or whatever one of the other casinos up there. Can't say I've necessarily had a great meal up there. Those Coney dogs are kind of overrated. Nah, I don't. I can't say it, Antoine. I'm sorry, but thank you for the super chat. Doug Shepard. Click. Come on. Does Ohio State score over 40 this week? I will give you a preview of my score prediction. I do not have Ohio State scoring over 40. I think it's possible. I think that what it is, it's finding the intersection of efficiency on offense and number of drives. And I think you get more drives. Not think, I know. If Purdue has 3 and out, or Purdue only has 4 and 5 play drives that result in punts, that's going to give the Ohio State offense more opportunities to get out there. You throw me more pitches, I'm more likely to hit more of them. So if you get more offensive drives, there's a chance of getting to 40. I mean, Purdue is more of a defensive led team. Ryan Walters was the former DC at Illinois for Bielema. Goes over to Purdue. I certainly think that the defense is ahead of the offense. I still don't think that it is it's still not where Ryan Walters wants it to be. You come in and you take over a roster and you can go to the portal and you can make some changes and you can do this and you can do that, but it's not an overnight thing. That's Luke Fickell in offense at Wisconsin. It's not an overnight thing. I just need to see it before I buy into it. As I say with recruiting, I believe Ohio State will land a modern day kid out of Southern California when I see Ohio State land a modern day kid. I will believe that Ohio State will start putting up 40 against mid-tier Big Ten opponents when I see Ohio State start putting up 40 against mid-tier Ohio State opponents. Now, by rule, I'm going to miss the front end of that. If I'm not going to believe it until it happens, there's going to be a game where it's going to happen, and I wasn't going to be on that bandwagon. I don't know. I don't see it getting there. I don't think until Ohio State figures out some of its run issues that Ohio State's going to be able to do it. What nobody wants to see is Ohio State attempt 73 passes like it did at Purdue in 2018, losing 49-20. Ohio State has got to be able to do something on the ground, has to be able to move the chains, has to be able to pick up, third and short, fourth and short. That has to be done. Ohio State cannot have a repeat of 2018 and kick a 23 and a 24-yard field goal in the first half. You've got to punch those in. You've got to be able to do that, whether that's run or pass. But running the ball is going to be very important. So thank you for that super chat. Steven Piper, do you see Kyle coming back next year? If so, with a little O-line improvement, couldn't we see this offense be a juggernaut again? I think we were all on the bandwagon before the start of the season that if Kyle won the job, he could be a one and out. I don't think we've seen enough yet for that to be the right decision if 1 and out is to go to the NFL. Now, of course, that brings up an interesting situation of what does that mean for Kyle and Devin and Lincoln next season. Could we see a different quarterback in 24, regardless of who's back? Yeah, potentially. I don't think that, I don't think it's going to be a case of, oh, well, you had the position, so you were locked down for that. Now, also remember, too, you're talking about this juggernaut. It's going to be a juggernaut without Marvin Harrison Jr. It's going to be a juggernaut without Emeka Ibuka. It's going to be a juggernaut with at least 2 of the running backs, if not all 3 of the running backs. And with that, I'm talking Mayan, Chip, and Trevion. At least 2 of them will be gone, if not all 3 of them. And then you lose Matt Jones, and you could lose Donovan Jackson. So I don't know if I'm necessarily seeing a path to where it's just going to be, an addition by subtraction type of situation. I think the O-line play is going to help, and I certainly would love, from just the team that I cover being as good as possible, see Donovan come back for another year. I think that you can, with a year of development, maybe some more success in the portal, you could maybe shore up some of the issues that you have. I think that the defense could. I think that they're getting into a position where this defense can just keep building upon itself and building upon itself under Jim Knowles. But offensively, I think the offense could take a step forward. But we got a long ways to go, and my mind hasn't gotten there yet. That's a long ways away to think about 24. Hell, we don't even know dates on the schedule yet. We should get that by the end of the month. Rumor has it. All right, we're caught up on super chats. Let me get back to where I was. Mika, your message again is about getting on the message board if you want to, or just reading content, whatever. But I know we spent a little bit of time trying to get that all solved, so I'm definitely been looking forward to seeing you on the message board. JJ is saying, is it true that Marvin and Emeka are out for Purdue? I was watching Marvin use the Monarch machine as we were recording Buckeye Weekly podcast over at the Woody yesterday. I mean, if Marvin played last week, why isn't Marvin playing this week? Emeka, on the other hand, they've said all the things to foam the runway for him to not play this week. I think they travel him. I think they dress him. I think he's probably listed as a game time decision. I don't think you need to play him, though. I don't think you need to play him. So, the importance of having him for Purdue is not nearly as high as Penn State. But yeah, unless something happened last night, Marvin was out there with Stocksdale using the Monarch machine. So that's what I know there. Mika saying she's been dealing with migraines. Oh, that sucks. That sucks. I had a lot of juvenile migraines. I get like one a year now, still like cluster to where your eyes tear. It just hurts that bad. It's not like, oh, I'm crying. It's just like I'm in so much pain that my tear ducts are just like, F you, I'm out of here. And so I sympathize. I definitely sympathize. We're here at about an hour into the show, so let me reset. You're watching the Big Me Kickoff. I am your host, Kevin Noon. It is Thursday, October 12th. We are closing in on the Purdue game. Be sure to sign up for Buckeye Huddle. Don't miss a single thing on Buckeye Huddle. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, and certainly give us a thumbs up. All of that helps us with the YouTube system, gets us distributed to more people, helps us with everything out there. And I want to welcome WagerWire on board. WagerWire, you definitely want to check them out. Let me get to my liner right here. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a better by allowing you to sync all of your sports books and track all of your bets in one place. You can see your current action, your betting history, and stats. You can also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Be sure when you sign up to use promo code Buckeye Huddle, all one word. They're the best place to hang on all of gambling Twitter. You can follow them at WagerWire on X, formerly known as Twitter. Head to the App Store or the Google Play Store now and search WagerWire to download the app today. So now that we got that out of the way, and again, for those of you who are joining us late, who do watch us on YouTube, I do have a video with Travis Geiger, one of the co-founders of WagerWire, to explain about the partnership and why you should be doing that if you enjoy a little sports wagering from your phone or tablet or device of your liking. Let me keep scrolling down because I've fallen behind somewhat. Wingman Ted, do I expect Caden Curry to actually touch the ball on offense, or is he really just a big tell that Ohio State is running and he's there to run block or maybe pass block on jet sweeps? Ohio State has not been able necessarily to throw it on fourth and shorts anyway, so I don't know why you would go to your fullback who is really a defensive guy and not go to one of your main offensive weapons. I mean, there are going to be times where you're just going to bring in personnel and everybody and their uncle is going to know what you're running and you're just going to out execute your opponent. We've not gotten there yet. We've not seen that yet. Ohio State has not been able to do that yet. We certainly have gotten to the point where I think everybody and their uncle knows what's coming. Push hasn't been there. The push hasn't been there. Joel Klatt went on and on about how Ohio State's line isn't getting up into the second level, isn't engaging the linebackers, so linebackers are getting free run at Ohio State ball carriers. There's a lot to it. Now, is there a play in the book to throw it to Caden Curry? Absolutely. You've got to draw everything up. You've got to anything you can do out of a formation, you've got to have a plan for it. Now, do I expect it? No. I mean, it's one of these situations of, do you put it on tape so your opponents have to prepare for it? Do you save it for a time that you actually need it? Or do people just not respect it enough that it doesn't really matter what you do? I mean, I don't know. I don't know, but no, I don't. I don't expect that right now. Let me go here. We got Patrick Logan from the Oregon coast. How are you doing, Patrick? How excited are you for 24 when Ohio State comes up to Oregon? Autzen Stadium will be rocking at that point. David Greenshield, have I heard anything about Steele being hurt? Should we expect more Simon? That's physical position, and they've gone against some physical backs. I've not heard anything specifically about Steele being questionable or even probable. I mean, they are very tight with their injuries. I think we're still going to see some Cody Simon in some situations. Something that we're not going to see in this game, in my opinion, is going to be the 4-3. Devin Mockabee does not necessitate having an additional linebacker in there. Tyrone Tracy wouldn't have either. He's out for the game. Hudson Card can scramble around a little bit. I mean, you're going to want to have somebody who's keeping an eye on him. I would rather have Sonny Styles as my third linebacker, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, as a safety, than having three traditional linebackers out there. I'll be sure to keep an eye on Steele this week and see how he looks, but I'm not aware. I think that a lot of people, just because the linebackers haven't played well, are wondering if they're at 70%, and that's why it's happening. I don't know for sure on that. JJ wishes that sports streaming was easier to watch. Yeah, I do too. Lavelle Cannon, you got your Peacock, Mr. Kevin Noon? I do have my Peacock, but it does not help me this weekend as I'll be on the road. I have thought about maybe bringing I have a second, like a spare, an older Apple TV, maybe bringing that and see if I can hook that into the hotel television to watch some of the game late at night after all the other games are done. But I gotta turn around and get back to Columbus on Sunday as well, and I gotta go work my side hustle producing a Browns post-game show, so I can't dilly-dally too much. Well, I'm staying. What am I talking about? I'm going and staying Friday night. I'm coming back Saturday, so I could come home and watch it. It all runs together. I was only going to do an hour. We're at an hour 7. Probably, I think I'm going to try and go short of an hour 30. We'll see. I'm hungry. No lunch, no breakfast yet. That was a big mistake on my part. Patrick Logan, we just canceled cable TV. The savings is covering all of our subscription services. We'd like to cut some of these too, or some of those too. I would love to be able to cut some stuff down, and I've looked at some of the streaming options. The problem is just there's nothing checks off all of the boxes. And it's not a case as if there's like a bunch of channels that my wife is like, we've got to have X, Y, and Z. I certainly need to have certain sports channels to do the job properly. And when you have those sports channels, even with sports packs or whatever you want to call them, you still have to have a certain level of service to get certain things. So I could certainly cut my bill by going to DirecTV Stream and even get a little bit better service than what I have now at DirecTV Standard proper, because I don't get charged per TV. There's not you have 3 boxes, so we're going to charge you $10 a month per box or whatever. I could save about $30 a month. But I would like to find a way to be able to cut it down even further and downgrade yet another level of service from where I'm at. I don't even get CBS Sportsnet. Does that matter for Big Ten? No. But on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, one of the games always seems to be on there, and I can't watch it. Now, am I really that upset that I couldn't watch Sam Houston State versus whoever? No. But there's going to be a time where it's going to be the only game on TV at that point, and I would rather watch that than Pawn Stars. So I don't know. JJ, I'm not paying NBC when I already pay satellite, and that's going to be a view a lot of people are going to have. Why am I going to do this? I'm already paying for service. Well, that's true. But if you wanted to watch, what's a big show on? I mean, if you wanted to watch Game of Thrones, you had to make sure that you had HBO. And yeah, it's nice that you can roll HBO into your cable account, your satellite account. So you're not seeing an additional bill, you're just raising your bill. Whereas you're having to pay a separate bill for a streaming service. If I want to watch these special South Parks on Paramount Plus, I've got to pay for Paramount Plus. I may or may not have the first couple of them found them on torrents. I'll never tell. I would never do anything questionable like that. But, it just was a point of where there was enough on Paramount Plus that I was interested in that I did that. Right now, there's not. I could potentially entertain the idea I just mentioned prior. I could go find it on streams. I could go find it somewhere else. I'm not made of money. I'm not sitting there, $8 a month. I don't care. Well, I care. That's 2 beers on Mug Night over at my favorite little microbrewery. Pre-tip, pre-tax. But still 2 beers. But there's something to be said of, I think, I think that we're just getting to a point of where streaming is going to be a real thing. And I just need to figure out how to get the essentials, to get a package of the essential channels that I want. And that's it. And then do everything else on streaming. Because honestly, I don't watch a lot of other television. I really don't. I watch anything Gordon Ramsay on Fox because it's hilarious. I watch a lot of things on History Channel because I'm an old dude. That's what old dudes do. And I watch cartoon reruns like on Comedy Central and Cartoon Network and FX. Oh, and I watch Welcome to Wrexham on FX or FXX, whichever one that is. Outside of that, I don't really watch a lot. Oh, and I will watch some Food Network too, just to get inspired. So I got to figure it out. Everybody's got to figure it out, and everybody's going to come to their own decision how they're going to handle Peacock and streaming and everything else. And there are going to be people who are going to be like, "Well, I missed the game. I didn't watch it, and I'm totally cool with it." I think there are going to be people that are going to get 1 quarter into the game who are going to be freaking out and signing up for Peacock. Fortunately, you can do that online, and you don't have to talk to an operator somewhere. I would be really curious during a game. And Ohio State versus Purdue certainly is not a big game, but it is the first game that Ohio State has had to deal with Peacock. I would be curious what the subscription growth number was from the start of the game to halftime of the game. How many people sign up? And then from there, go through some of the demographics and see how many are from Ohio or whatever. Now, I'm not saying that, 300,000 people are going to sign up. No. I mean, it could be 500. I don't know. But I would just be curious to see how many people think they're going to get away without pulling the trigger who actually do end up pulling the trigger. I think there are going to be a lot of people who aren't. There'll be a lot of people who aren't. I put my foot down. I'm not doing this. Sorry, not sorry. Not doing it. I'm going to listen to 97.1. I'm going to find 97.1 online. I'm going to listen to it that way. I'm just going to go out to the park and watch my kid play on the swings and throw the ball around. I mean, there are all sorts of options out there. But I think there are going to be some people who will lose their resolve and just say, to hell with it, and we'll sign up. I don't think that's going to be the type of number we're going to get. I don't think it benefits Peacock to put it out there and be like, 604 people signed up for Peacock during the 90 minutes from the kick of the Ohio State game to halftime. I mean, I don't think anybody wants to have their subscriber numbers out there like that. But I think there are going to be people who are going to pull the trigger. I really do. I mean, I know that back when ESPN Game Plan was out there, I knew people that would just sit there and buy the specific game the day of. They wouldn't buy the whole package, but they would just sit there and say, I want to watch Texas and Baylor, and they live in Florida, and it was not on the air, and we weren't even at Reverse Mirror, and it was a case of if you didn't get that, you weren't watching it. And people would pay $10 for a game. People would pay $10 for a game. Just you would get the game. That was it. Not even any replayability. Not even all of NBC's shows on there, and shows specifically made for Peacock, like Twisted Metal, which looks like maybe the worst show on television. So I don't know. I worked in TV for a long time. I have my jaded TV opinions. They may sync up with some of yours. They may not sync up with some of yours. I think a lot of people are just going to say, I'm not doing it. But I don't know how many are going to be like the second time it happens or the third time it happens or whatever. I think there's going to be an inevitability that people are going to feel like, well, if I'm going to keep doing this, I'm going to have to finally pull the trigger. But I think a lot of people, we'll do this show next week and people will say, nope, didn't do it. I have no way of checking. I don't care that much to be like, no, liar, I know you got it. I know you got it. How dare you? Why must you turn my place into a house of lies? But, we'll see. We'll see. I've gone on and on about that enough. I'm falling way before. Hulu Live is 65, I think. Yeah. Again, I have to see everything that's on there. I finally have cable, or I have fiber optic internet that is fast enough that I like enough that I trust some of these things. I had WoW. WoW moved out of our area, sold off to BreezeLine. BreezeLine was horrible, but I will say this. BreezeLine was horrible because WoW had been holding together its network with spit and chewing gum. BreezeLine got in, it's like buying a car without seeing the car. They got in there, they lifted the hood, they're like, wow, there's a raccoon and a wheel in here and nothing else, and one spark plug. So and I didn't have time to wait for them to get their in order. So I moved to AT&T, and I have AT&T Fiber, and it's great. It's great. I love it. I've had one moment of some degraded service, and it was like 30 minutes. The Big Me Kickoff does not get compensation from AT&T Wireless or fiber optic services, so this is not an endorsement of any product right there. It is just my own opinion. Let me see here with a couple of super chats that I've missed. At least one. I've got that one. I got that one. Here we go. Omar Austin. This super chat just cost me watching the game, Kevin. Well, I appreciate it. That doesn't mean that you can call me up during the game and ask for me to give you opinions of what I'm seeing. I get those text messages all the time. Did you just see that play? Bruh, you know where I'm at. I'm at the game. I did. What did you think about it? I can't talk to you right now. I'm busy. I'm busy. I can't do that. And a couple of people who send me those messages, we've had that conversation, and they're like, I know, I'm sorry. You're like the one person that I know that understands what's going on out there, and I needed to check myself. I'm like, well, you're going to wreck yourself because I can't talk to you right now. Or when like in the post-game show, like when I'm behind the camera and we're putting Ryan Day's presser up live and I get the text messages like, I can't believe they did X and Y. I don't even answer those. But it doesn't stick. It doesn't stick sometimes. Let me kind of get back to where we were. I don't even know if I marked it at this point. Here we go with David Greenshield. I feel like the Penn State offense is somewhat limited. Could see a Tress-like 17-14. Whenever I expect to see a high-scoring game, we get a low-scoring game and vice versa. I thought that the 1-2 game between Ohio State and Michigan in 6 was going to be like 10-7, and it ended up being 42-39. It just goes to show you never know. I think Ohio State's defense could do a job of keeping Penn State limited. I certainly think that Penn State's defense could do the same for Ohio State. I think that your 17-14 observation may not be far off. But, we're not going to learn much about Penn State this week. It's playing UMass. So I have 2 other games on the DVR. I will DVR the mass game just for personnel, just to kind of see who played. We're going to learn a lot more from Ohio State with Purdue, but even that, I don't think we're going to learn a ton. I think we're going to learn if Ohio State can get off to a quick start and if Ohio State can build off of some of its mistakes. But I don't think Purdue is going to be a huge speed bump. I know 3-5, 3-5, 3-5. I understand. And it could rain during the game some. It's going to be a little windy. It's not going to be a night game. These fans aren't going to be as lathered up as they were last time. And, it was something that I'd kind of forgotten about that I heard on the radio show today. I believe it was from Jim Lachey. It may have been from Paul Keels. I know it was Lachey now that I think about it. That the place was kind of half empty, even at halftime, but then filled up. And by the end of the game, it was full because people who were like, well, I'm not going, who had tickets, like students, went. I mean, hell, it wouldn't surprise me if they just opened the gates and just said, just come on in. I've seen that happen. Kansas has done that before. Kansas did that against Oklahoma a couple years ago. And, it filled up and it was loud and crazy and everything else. And Ohio State was a no-show in that game. It was just a no-show. So I don't know what I feel about that Penn State game. I'll have to think about it some. We're not quite there yet. Mika asking, do I think that Mayan Williams plays more? I don't think Mayan Williams looks right. It's not he's a step slow or something, but it's kind of like when I used to officiate basketball in college over at Larkins. I passed the state test. I had everything. I could have gone and done like high school basketball if I wanted to. I didn't. It was way too much confrontation in doing all that stuff. It was way too much confrontation. But with that being said, it was like, if something looks wrong, if something looks like a foul, it's probably a foul. Well, with Mayan Williams, something looks off. So if something looks off, then I think something may be off. I don't know. I'm not the only person out there saying that either. Now, Mayan Williams could be like, yo, I heard you say something on your show. Quit saying that. That's not true. I'm only saying what I think. And I think something doesn't look right. And I also understand that people want to see more Mayan Williams because they're like, well, we've seen Trevion and we've seen Chip. And Ohio State's running game still isn't consistent. Well, it's Trevion that's hit the couple of big runs. So I wouldn't want to see any less Trevion. And Chip has been there in very key moments too. So it's kind of the bird in hand is worth, two in the bush. We don't know what we don't know about Mayan this year, including if he's completely right. But we haven't seen a lot of him. And the little bits we've seen that physical style of running, but we haven't seen his bigger runs. I mean, it's just like people asking, why haven't we seen Dallin Hayden? The last images we really had of Dallin Hayden were him at Maryland torching the Terps. I mean, there's a reason kind of behind everything. I think if the weather is a little on the bad side, I think we do see a little bit more running, which could mean more for Mayan. But I'd like to see them get Chip back up to speed so he is ready to go for Penn State. Let me just keep going. I'm just going to scroll down some. Here we go. Omar says he needs play-by-play. Good luck with that. If there's something it's called ESPN Game Tracker, you may want to check that out. Then again, I have a feeling you probably have Peacock as well, and you're just trying to have a little fun with us here. Mozart's Ghost said, I wasn't going to sign up for Peacock, but I caved. I mean, yeah. And to the follow-up, the offseason is too long not to enjoy football. And there's going to be Big Ten men's basketball on there. A bunch. And that may not be Mozart's cup of tea. I don't know. I only know the song Rock Me Amadeus by Falco, the great Austrian rock star. But I don't know if he liked men's basketball. But there's going to be a lot of men's basketball on there. And again, it's one of these situations. I've talked to a lot of people who have young kids, and apparently there's programming on there for them. And I don't know. I don't get a kickback on any of this stuff. I should have just figured out how to get my own Peacock referral code. I could have made tens of cents on that. Just scrolling through here a little bit more. John Alexander, do you think they'll utilize Carnell Tate as the season progresses? That's a good question, John. You have a situation of where you have your core of Marvin, Emeka, and Julian. And then we've seen a lot more going to Cade Stover this year than we've seen in other years in terms of tight end receptions. You don't necessarily want to take your best guys off the field, but you also don't want to be in a position where you have to bring somebody in and you've not brought them along. I'm assuming Carnell's got to be approaching 4 games. I mean, they've only played 5, so maybe not, but they're not going to redshirt him this year. I think that this is a game where there is a really good opportunity, if Emeka does not go, that we could see Carnell and Xavier kind of fill that role a little bit. And then I think it's a case of if Carnell starts doing more, Carnell just has to go and demand with his actions, not his words, with his actions, has to demand playing time, whether that's in practice or in limited action in games or whatever. I have not heard anybody who has said anything in regards to he ain't ready. It ain't him. Everybody has said quite the opposite. But with that being said, it's hard to take Marvin and Emeka off the field. You're not going to get the type of blocking from any other receiver on the roster than Julian. Oh, and by the way, Julian also makes some really big catches. So unless you get into a situation of where you're 4 wide or 5 wide, which is not necessarily how Ohio State does things. I mean, they may go empty, but one of those 5 is going to be their tight end. It's going to be Stover, and one of those 5 could be the running back. If they sit there and start in one formation and empty out, I would like to see Carnell get more run. I think that he is going to be a tremendous player, but it took time to get everybody else out there. It took a long time to get Marvin on the field. It took a long time. I mean, hell, Chris Olave didn't really get his first run all the way up until the Michigan game, the last game of the regular season. So just because you haven't seen somebody in game 4, game 5, or game 6 doesn't mean necessarily that they're punting on them and wait till next year. I think it's just that type of situation. Mika asking about Kyle's ankle. I don't remember if he was asked about that last night. I just don't. I mean, he's not really been limited in practice according to people I'm talking to. And it's been on the cool side a couple of days in Columbus. You know, I think that's why my back has been acting up. He's still not going to be out there. He's still not going to be Caleb Williams out there running the ball. He's still not going to be, bring up a name from the past, he's not going to be Tate Martell out there running the ball. He is who he is, but you certainly need everything working in order to finish your mechanics of throwing the ball. You're not just using your arm. You're using everything. I mean, to drive the ball and do everything, especially if it's going to be a little windy there at Ross-Ade. You want to make sure that everything's right. Let me see this one. Antoine Johnson with the super chat. To my favorite Buckeye, the only one I can really deal with, even though delusional. I wouldn't say delusional. I'm not delusional. I'm real. And I think all of the guys at Buckeye Huddle do a good job of being real. I don't watch a lot of other shows, so I can't speak on them. I don't feel comfortable speaking on them. Some are friends. Some are not. But I just try to keep it as real as I can. Now, for the sake of delusionality, is that a word? For the sake of being delusional, I rarely pick against Ohio State in my game predictions. I have before, but it's rare. But I think Ohio State's record as of late proves me right in doing so. Ryan Day is 50-6 as head coach. I'm pretty sure I picked Michigan in both of those games. Those were swings and misses, so that's 2 right there. I think in the Clemson game, the one that Ohio State lost, I don't remember. I may have picked them to lose that one. I don't know. I certainly picked against them against Alabama in the national championship game. I did not like that matchup. I did not like the fact that Ohio State was COVID testing. I did not like the fact that I knew Ohio State was going to be without some key players. And I didn't like the fact that there wasn't a whole lot of turnaround time from an emotional win over Clemson. I'm sure I picked Ohio State over Oregon. So I mean, let's just say I've been wrong in 4 picks over the last 56 games. I don't see a lot of shame in that. I've not made a pick for Ohio State, Michigan this year. I've not made a pick for Ohio State, Penn State. Trust me, I heard enough crap about all of my popping off about Notre Dame. I got stopped 3 different times that I remember while I was in South Bend. You're that guy. Yeah, I am. Including one while I was on the field. As I was getting ready to walk up the tunnel thinking that Ohio State had lost the game, getting ready to go produce the postgame show. You're that guy. Yeah. All you can do is be gracious at that point. What am I going to do? Fight him? I'm a lover, not a fighter, baby. I mean, I certainly can get out there and throw bows if I need to, but that's just not me. That's not me. I was much more pissed off in my younger years. I've calmed down. Whether or not I'm all out of pea and vinegar or I'm just too old to move, I don't know the answer to that one. Antoine saying I was biting my nails with the Notre Dame game. I mean, I didn't want to deal with an angry fan base. I'll tell you that. I certainly didn't want to do that. I didn't have a wager on the game. I didn't have any skin in the game. Yeah, Notre Dame fans were going to come onto my social and destroy me. Wouldn't be the first time. Probably won't be the last time. But it was better. It was better that Ohio State won the game. I can assure you, for those of you who weren't on the shows, weren't on message boards like the Huddle board over at Buckeye Huddle, there were a lot of fans that after the afterglow wore off were like, okay, well, we won, but God, we suck. I mean, so a win doesn't always equate to hunky-dory. A loss generally means misery, especially in this fan base, because nobody's used to seeing them. We're a long ways removed from 2011 and 6-7. We're a long way removed from that. So most of Ohio State's losses are upsets. Most of Ohio State's losses, experts, myself included, are telling you that Ohio State's going to win the game. And then they don't. For one reason or another. And sadness and madness ensues. John Alexander, that's why I watch Buckeye Huddle, because you, Kevin, Tom, and Tony are very knowledgeable about Ohio State football and give your honest assessment. That's what it's all about. Well, thank you, John. I appreciate that. I mean, again, I'm not here to drive a narrative. A happy fan base is easier to deal with than an upset fan base. But with that being said, sometimes it's easier to sell subscriptions to an upset fan base. And we've said all along in this industry, and I've been in this industry for a while. I was in TV for the first half of my professional career. I've been in internet for the second half. 12-0 or 0-12. Those are the only times you make money. Everything has to be going perfect, or everything has to be going the opposite of perfect. Unperfect. If that's the case, people want to talk and people want to pay to be part of a great community like Buckeye Huddle. 6-6 is death. I mean, maybe, and for Ohio State, I'd say 9-3, because 9-3 is 6-6 to Ohio State as of late. Apathy sets in. I don't know if I want to watch the game sets in. Why am I doing this sets in. I got better stuff I can be doing with my time sets in. So yeah, you want to have that. But me driving a narrative and saying, no, the emperor is not naked, is not going to help anybody. And just makes me look like a phony and a fraud. And the only thing we have out here is our rep. And amongst Notre Dame fans, my rep is garbage. But amongst Ohio State fans, I'd like to believe it's pretty good. When I get recognized at the grocery store, at the airport, or wherever, I smile. I ran into somebody who is a podcast watcher. He left a comment in one, but he's from West Virginia. I do not remember his name because I'm horrible with that stuff. So apologies if you're watching. But I was heading down to the field and he stopped me and he's like, "Oh my God, it's Kevin Noon." I said, "Oh my God, it's Kevin Noon." And we sat there and we talked for 10 minutes. I love spending time talking with you all in person. I mean, there are going to be times where I can't do it because I'm running to go do something. But with that being said, I enjoy it. If I sit there and I spend time talking to somebody, it's less likely I'm going to piss you off down the line. Oh, well, Noon was really wrong on that one, but I'll stick around. But, that's what it is. Mozart's Ghost. Kevin went to South Bend and stood in the paint. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Again, it was one of those things of I popped off a little early. I popped off before seeing 1 second of what Ohio State's offense looked like. But you don't want to be that guy who goes out there and is consistently changing your picks. You get no cred with that. You get no cred whatsoever. And my reputation and my credibility mean a lot to me. They really do. No, I can't pay my bills with either of them. But you gotta have something. You gotta have a line that you're willing to cross and a line that you're not willing to cross. So, I mean, if we get to the last weekend of the season, Ohio State's defense or offense is not good at all. I mean, regresses. And we've seen the defense take a step back. I'll be real with you. I'll be real with you and tell you what I think. I mean, I might be, I might have bile in my mouth as I'm writing the preview. But if I think Michigan's going to win the game, I'll begrudgingly say it after a lot of hemming and hawing and trying to soften the blow. But, it is what it is. Antoine saying, "I never did answer your question. Do you find it troubling Ohio State can't replace their O-line? And what is your assessment on the coaches under Day?" Yeah, I know. I had to fast forward through a lot of questions. I've gone over an hour and a half now. We're going to set the cap at 2 hours. I at least need to get a soda. I'm starting to lose my voice. I do find it troubling. I think that the departure of Luke Whippler took everybody by surprise. And he's now the third team center, maybe the second team. I don't know what the injury status if they lost their center for the year for the Cleveland Browns. With Paris Johnson Jr., he absolutely made the right decision. With DeJuan Jones, he made some bad decisions along the way, but ultimately he is paying off. I think what he did not working out at Pro Day and what he did at Combine cost him some money, but he fell into the right opportunity. Ohio State's inability to replace their offensive line largely goes back to the previous offensive line coach, Greg Studrawa. He missed a lot more than he made on terms of his evaluations of players. Plain and simple. And there were plenty of guys on the Ohio State roster that were never going to play a down at Ohio State. Maybe garbage time PAT. And that would be about it. So it's hard because you bring in a new coach like Justin Fry, and that first cycle is never going to work out well for you, especially if you're bringing in somebody from out of region who is recruiting completely different kids. You don't necessarily have a track record to fall back on. But what I was doing at UCLA, that doesn't really matter. And you don't have a track record for Ohio State because obviously you had to make a change, so something probably wasn't going right. So you're not going to sit there and say, pop in the UCLA tape, pop in the Ohio State tape. So you're a little behind the 8 ball because you don't have the relationships and you don't have that. So Ohio State had to replace 3/5 of its line. And Ohio State did go to the portal for 2 guys. It went to the portal for Vic Cutler, who's not been able to overtake Carson Hinsman at this point. So you're playing a redshirt freshman who's still relatively new to the center position. I think Carson's done well at times. I think Carson's looked like a redshirt freshman at times. None of that statement's unfair. None of that statement's false. I think both of those are true. And then you're playing Josh Fryer at one tackle. I think Josh Fryer would be a tremendous guard. I don't really see him as a tackle. And then you got Josh Simmons at the other tackle. I think Ohio State hit the portal too late. I think Ohio State needed to hit the portal sooner to address tackle. There wasn't a lot left in the portal. And I will say one thing, and I hate saying this, anything good about Michigan, but Michigan does a great job of managing the portal, especially on the offensive line. I think Michigan's done a much better job of addressing some of those types of needs on the line through the portal, unlike Ohio State. So, yeah, it's troubling. It's not unexpected. If the line is not very good next year, then it's more. Then it's more at that point. A second year Luke Montgomery, a year older Tegra Shabola, a year older Zen Mahalski. I want to see some of these guys. I want to see where they're at that point. If they're still in the wilderness at that point, that's a problem. That's a problem. Now, and Antoine, I know you're not an Ohio State fan, so this is not a question I'm asking you directly. What if Ohio State lands Jordan Seaton, the big-time offensive lineman out of IMG Academy, originally out of D.C.? Is everything forgotten? Is everything forgiven at that point? I mean, they've gone out and done okay in their recruiting, getting the Armstrong twins, getting Ian Moore. I think all of those are solid pickups, but they're all young. You're dealing with an offensive line that has got a chasm between your elder statesmen and then a bunch of young pups who have not had a chance to get to the dog bowl. So I don't know. And then your second thing, the assessment of coaches under Day. You're putting me in a position here because I have to talk to all these guys regularly. And everybody has radar ears. So Coach blank is this and this. Hey, I heard you call me this and this. And I can't, I'm not living my life in fear. I mean, I'm going to be real with you, but I'm also not going to do any unforced errors. I was critical of Urban's staff down the stretch. Billy Davis. What are we doing here? What are we doing here with Billy Davis? I was not a fan of the Combs rehiring because Ryan Day was asking for Combs to run a defense that he had no business running, in terms of he was not a cover 1, cover 3, single high type of guy. He ran every defense in the world at Tennessee with the Titans under Dean Pease, who was the DC, and was very familiar with all of them, but you still give him one that was not really in his wheelhouse. And it's like me sitting there asking you to go out and play, a day of basketball, a day of AAU basketball, only shooting left-handed. Yeah, some things are going to work. There's certain muscle memory there, but I'm not expecting it to be beautiful, and I'm certainly not expecting perfect results. I think that there are probably a couple of coaching moves that I would make after the season. I'm going to keep those to myself at this point. I think it is criminal that there's not a way that James Laurinaitis is one of your on-field coaches. And I know that Ohio State has been waiting for the NC2A regulation to allow more coaches into the arena, whether it's unlimited, which have been talked about, and then I've heard 15. I mean, whatever it is, because let's be real, your power programs are just going to have a bunch of analysts anyway. Ohio State has a bunch of analysts. Alabama has a bunch of analysts, whatever. You may as well have counting coaches that count against the count, which is 10 right now. You may as well just do that and remove this veil of hypocrisy of, well, I mean, they're GAs, they're analysts. while I don't believe schools are wantonly going out and breaking the rules and having these guys do things that they shouldn't do, why are we having this whole charade that they have to be limited like that? It's dumb. But yeah, I think there are a couple of coaching changes that I would make, and people can talk about them in the chat, and that's fine. And I'm not going to get into them. I don't want to have to go and talk to Coach A and Coach B and hear about it. It just, I mean, it's a lot easier for a lot of talk radio guys who don't go out in the field, sit in their booth, and talk crap about people, and then lament. And the beat media, let me tell you, they don't even ask the difficult questions. Well, get off your ass and leave your booth and go. You go ask it then, tough guy. I mean, it's really easy to sit there, and it makes great radio to go there and talk a bunch of crap and rile people up and everything else. But it does piss me off severely when they're like, "Oh, the beat media isn't asking tough questions." I mean, a lot of our interviews and stuff are almost like a negotiation, and we should all be so lucky to go in and handle a negotiation like Michael Corleone and Godfather 2. You get nothing. So it is what it is. So there we go on that one. I want to try and get through a couple bit more. Can't make this the Kevin and Antoine show. God, a lot of good stuff has come in, and I've missed a lot of it. Brad Smith not recruiting Ohio kids like Blake Miller, who was starting at Clemson, was a head scratcher then and still is now. Yeah, I didn't understand that one. A certain offensive line coach who's not with Ohio State any longer had the task of whatever you do, you've got to recruit Jackson Carman. Don't let him get away. And he got away. Some coaches are good at recruiting, some coaches are not, and some coaches are downright terrible at recruiting. I'm going to give you a guess where the coach that I'm talking about, who does not coach here anymore, so I feel a little bit more freedom to be real, which category he falls in. But for the sake of honesty, Ed Warner was not a good recruiter either. Ed Warner was a tremendous developer, not much of an OC, but he was a great player developer. His players would have gone to war for him. Recruits who didn't really know him found him weird and off-putting. Not a guess. Not a guess. With Stud, he was just an absent recruiter. And I'm not really convinced. I think Ohio State took a little bit of a step backward in terms of development from Warner, if we're being honest. So those are my views on that one. Probably hear about it from somebody. That's fine. You know where to reach me. I'll answer on the second or third ring. Let me keep going here. Dave Rice, football will always be a line of scrimmage game, and you can get those guys here. I really, I'm fascinated with kind of what happened with Ohio State's offensive line recruiting, and I'm gonna treat this with kid gloves, and you're gonna understand why in a second. They moved on from Mark Nave out of Central Catholic at Toledo. I think it was kind of a mutual decision. I think Ohio State has got to have a much higher hit rate with its offensive line recruiting. Plain and simple. A lot of people have talked about Matt Jones and Donovan Jackson not playing as well this year as they did previous years. Well, I'll say this. Each of them are flanked on either side by new guys. Offensive line is a position where you move as a group. You act in unison. It is the offensive line group. That's why there is a Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line in college football. There's not a Team Bolitnikoff Award for the best wide receiver core. There's not a Team Thorpe Award for best defensive backs. But there is a Joe Moore Award that goes to the best offensive line because often they're anonymous and they act in unison. So there has been a little bit of a step back, in my opinion, with the guard play. I'm not going to put all of it on the fact that they're surrounded by new guys, but I think that sometimes when things aren't going right, it snowballs. So I think that's part of it. Ohio State just has to get a higher hit rate on its offensive line recruiting, plain and simple. I think the class that has Montgomery and Padilla and Sererveld and I'm drawing a blank on the last one. I think that's going to end up being a pretty good class. But they're only a year in. Those pups don't even know how to bark yet, even though Luke Montgomery is forcing his way out there a little bit, is out there in kind of the bison package. All of that is there. It'll come there for Luke. Luke's going to be the one who's going to come online first, I believe. Let me keep going here as we're closing in. Dave, I'm not going to punch it up here. Not really a fan of Ryan Day, believing that he doesn't value the line of scrimmage and that he's not a big fan of offensive genius head coaches. But I think that there's a shortcoming with every head coach. There's going to be a blind spot with every head coach, whether or not it is the pass-friendly coach who doesn't value fighting in a phone booth, whether it's the defensive coach that doesn't, understand this about offense, whether it's Lincoln Riley who doesn't realize that Alex Grinch is not, and will not get it done as his DC. There's going to be a lot of that. I don't think that there's somebody of where you're going to sit there and say, okay, it's like building a character in a video game and they're 5s out of 10 on everything. And it's not like, where I'm going to have a bunch of 10s on passing strategies and everything else and 1s on line play or whatever. But who's really going to be, your straight 5s ticket? And is that straight 5s ticket going to be successful? I'm going to say no. Where the game of football has gone a lot more toward this wide open everything else, but I think Ohio State has gone too far and is not getting it done in the phone booth that I mentioned about where the fight needs to happen. And I don't have an answer as to why it's not there. I don't put it necessarily on the fact of, they just don't care about X or, they're indifferent about Y. I don't know. I'm not going to be betting any rushing overs for Ohio State anytime soon. Even if I do see it, I'm not going to believe it, and I'm not going to expect it to carry over. And that's not just sitting there saying Purdue and then Penn State. I'm just talking in general. You could put Ohio State in a 3-game series against Minnesota back-to-back weeks. And if I see Ohio State do something game 1, it doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to believe I'm going to see it game 2 or game 3. So I don't know. Now I'm sad. Antoine, I'm not going to put any posts through where you call him Little Day Day. Just not going to do it. Sorry. Brad Smith here. Dave, even when the line of scrimmage is working, Day just gives up on running. Last year at half, 5th string running back was averaging 6 yards a carry versus Michigan. And even going back to Trey Sermon, Day refused to run him until second. We are all held captive by what we value most, and Ryan Day is a passing genius, and there are going to be times that they're not going to do that. There were times where I could sit there, and when the chips were on the table, Urban Meyer was going to call off of a play sheet of 3 plays regardless of what he had. That was just where he went and retreated to, and we kind of know where Ryan Day retreats to. We kind of know where a lot of these coaches retreat to. It's just kind of what happens. Is why you study tendencies and is why you work so hard on the other side to do things that break your tendencies. But they're called tendencies for a reason. So I don't know if I have the answer to that. On the radio show today, they were once again talking about running to the boundary, and I'm just sitting there going, don't run to the boundary all the time. Even the fan question was like, splitting it up and running both sides to keep teams off balance. And then again, we hear about the leverage and everything else. Well, you can have that leverage, but you're also running on the short side. You also have the sideline right there. And we have plenty of examples of where the short side runs are not necessarily working on stretch. But that's that. We are closing in here at an hour and 55 minutes. Let me just say one more time. If you're watching, please hit that thumbs up. We'll just start there with the thumbs up. Don't cost nothing. It helps us with the algorithm, gets us distributed around to more people. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to hit that thumbs up button. Means the world to me. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hit it. Subscribe to our channel. Never miss a single show that we do here by hitting that bell. If you're listening to us on the podcasting channels, write us a 5-star review. If you sit there and write a review about Tony and ketchup, I will give you extra credit. But that helps us with distribution there. Be sure to sign up for Buckeye Huddle. Be sure to keep an eye out on WagerWire as well. Be sure to download those apps. I think I've hit all of our commercials, but we're here in the final 4 minutes of the show. What are your thoughts on this game? Let's see some score predictions. I'm hearing plenty about how Ohio State sucks at the lines. I'm hearing plenty about this, that, and the other. Hello, Dion Pryor from Nebraska. Is everyone happy? I think everybody's relatively happy. But let me see some scores. Let me see some scores out there of what you think we're going to see coming out of the Purdue game, and maybe even what the headline should be. Do my job for me. Write my headline. What are we going to see? And I will give everybody a minute or so to get involved right here. Wingman Ted comes in 35-10 over Purdue. I think that seems like a pretty fair score. I think 10 is right. I don't know what my thought is on 35 at this point. We have Bootzilla with 34-10. We have David Greenshield with 38-10. I think people are really liking 10. Mozart's Ghost coming in even a little lower, 38-7 at this point. Dave Rice just not feeling it. I hope OSU loses so we can start moving towards a real program again. 50-6, just not good enough for Dave Rice. For everything that Urban did right, you know what Urban did wrong? Lost games that he shouldn't have. Lost a game to Purdue. Lost a game to Iowa. I think that we could go through, and if we're being honest, pick 4 or 5 things that have been wrong with every coach. I mean, I think that that's all going to be there, and it's just part of the natural churn, and doesn't make anybody bad because they aren't buying into somebody. I mean, everybody's got their own opinion. That's fine, but I don't know. I don't necessarily see this huge thing. We're half a season removed from Ohio State putting up 45 points a game. We're about 4 seasons removed from seeing Ohio State be able to run the ball with any consistency. I'm more concerned about what we're 4 years removed from than what we're half a season removed from. Let me get back into or scores. 38-14 from Mika Hanna. Dion Pryor, 31-28 Purdue. Go Big Ten West. Well, that would be something. How is Purdue going to score 31 in this game? I don't know, Kevin. How is Purdue going to score 49 in 2018? That's why we got to watch the games or not watch them. If you don't want to get Peacock, there are various ways to get on there. And another way to be able to watch the game without watching it is by being a member of Buckeye Huddle, getting in our game thread. You better take your Nitro tab before you do it. It is a Jekyll and Hyde experience unlike any other. The highest of highs, the lowest of lows, the maddest of mads. It's something, and it's only available at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Now, people disagreeing with Purdue scoring 31. We'll see there. As Bootzilla says, Rondale Moore not walking through that door. That's how. And ain't that a fact? I like their one receiver, Burks, I think is his name. I think Maccabee is fine as a runner, but I don't think he's the type of running back who finds success against Ohio State. I think that Ohio State's got to get pressure on Hudson Card. Hudson Card does fall like a house of cards at times, and he's a quarterback too that if you get to him and you put some bad news into his forecast and he falls apart. So I think that Ohio State has to get up early. The longer you let Purdue hang around and believe this, the worse things can go. But we're here at 2 hours, and we certainly have gotten to the point of where we've devolved into our Ryan Day is or isn't the answer debate and so on and so forth. And we're not going to solve that, even if we go another 2 hours. So until the next time here on this special Thursday edition of the Big Me Kickoff, thank you so much. Have a wonderful Friday. Enjoy the game, whether it's on the radio, on Peacock, on some illegal Hong Kong stream, however you're going to do it. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon.